I was in awe. And I was in complete and total awe. I was standing in front of Jesus Christ. I was laying in front of him. And I knew the moment that I saw him that it was Jesus and nobody else. I was at complete and total peace. You could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet in the middle of a prolonged gunfight.
The story you're about to hear today may contain some difficult and graphic details, but it's also a story of miracle after miracle. On September 25th, 2012, Deputy Ali Perez entered what was supposed to be a routine operation, only to find himself in a life or death shootout he could never have anticipated. Within minutes of potentially losing his life, something extraordinary happened. My guest said Jesus appeared in that room, and what followed not only brought healing to his body, but also to the hearts of those involved. This is his story. So September 25th, 2012, that was a day that I know completely changed your life. And I would say in a moment of violence and survival, and what could have tragically had a different ending, you experienced a supernatural encounter with Jesus. And before we dive into that moment, maybe you could just give our listeners a glimpse into who you are, your background, your career, and then what led you to that day.
So thank you so much. It's a blessing to be here. My name is Ali Perez. I spent 20 years in Sinew County Sheriff's Office. I worked the jails, I worked patrol, I worked gang suppression, I worked community policing, back to patrol. I did a brief stint in the courts to regroup, and from the courthouse I went to advanced investigations, which was child abuse, which was my last assignment when this amazing miracle took place. And you're looking at somebody that's only alive by the grace of God, that there's no way I should have survived this incident. And I'm so very, very excited to share with everybody who can hear it.
Well, I am excited to have you here today. I heard your story briefly. We chatted maybe a couple of months ago. And in fact, as we're recording this, tomorrow would mark the 13-year anniversary to this experience that you encountered and I assume changed your life. And so I'm excited to hear this story again. And I think our listeners today are going to really be touched by what happened to you. So maybe take us to that day, September 25th, 2012. Tell us what happened on that day.
So this day radically transformed the trajectory of my life, my family's life, and it just impacted me in every conceivable way. I showed up to work. I'd been a detective for the child abuse unit at that point for 2 years. I showed up to my work. My boss, the boss that hired me, handed me a yellow sticky that says, "Hey, I need you to head out to Santee. There is a young deputy there with a mom who has some child porn on her cell phone." And me trying to be slick, realizing most of the time pornography on a cell phone is downloaded off the internet and child porn, and it's a federal case, not a state case. So I was like, well, that sounds like a federal crime. We have a task force that investigates the federal crimes. Let's send that case over to them and let them handle it. And then my boss says, well, I'd love to send it to, it's called ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. And my boss said, I'd love to send it to him, except that the two victims on the images and videos are her daughters that are 6 and 8 at the time. And I didn't know that when he first presented it to me. So I was trying to be slick and just push the case off and grab the next case and get back to work. But hearing that, then I had to full stop and we have to break everything down. There is a mom that has pornographic images of her children being abused horribly by the live-in boyfriend. So what I do is I call and I talk to the young deputy who has the case. I told him, hey, I've got the case from this point forward. Make mom comfortable. Don't touch the phone. I'll be there in about an hour. So then I gathered all the senior detectives that were subject matter experts. I considered myself a journeyman. I've been there 2 years, maybe 100, 120 cases under my belt, give or take. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't consider myself a subject matter expert, but a working detective. I had a working knowledge of the subject matter, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert. So I gathered the experts and I said, "This is what I got. This is what I'm going to do about it. Am I leaving anything out you guys think is important?" They said, "No, hey, we like your plan. Go forth and go forth and take care of business." I make it out to the station. I meet with the deputy. I meet with the mom, and we go to a conference room and we sit down. Because the station was very busy, it was out in Santee, and I had spent 10 years of my career out of that station. So I'd been out of that station about 4 years at the time, so I still knew about half the people there. There's turnover over the years. Mm-hmm. And then, so I sit down with the mom, and we get into a quiet conference room, and we sit down, and first words out of her mouth, "I do not trust law enforcement. My ex-husband is doing a lengthy prison sentence because the detectives lied, falsified, manipulated the evidence." And if we pause right there and get to the legal facts of the case, what happened? She was married. She lived in the state of Virginia. She had 4 children. While living in the state of Virginia, her previous husband was molesting her kids. Mm-hmm. They gathered legally and lawfully overwhelming and compelling evidence against her ex-husband. And when they confronted with him, he gave an admission to his crimes. And was ultimately sentenced to 47 years for the molestations that were occurring. So, nobody lied, cheated, falsified, or manipulated any of the evidence. It was gathered legally and lawfully, and that's public record and can be verified.
And an admission, you're saying, as well.
And an admission. Yeah. And so he was sentenced to 47 years in prison.
So the mom already had some mistrust with law enforcement. So on one hand, she's, so to say, cooperating or understands what's happening. But on the other hand, there's this underneath mistrust.
Super mistrust. Mm-hmm. And not only that, she was equally as concerned that she was going to lose custody of her children. Mm-hmm. And probably that happened to her last time in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And so when she was, as we're going through this, her day, her concern wasn't just 100%. I discovered my children were the victim of sexual abuse. It was not only that, but equally concerning, you guys are going to take my kids from me.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon, but it was an equal part. It wasn't full blown. So, it took me about 45 minutes talking to her, and I said, "You don't have to like me. You don't have to trust me. Let my work speak for itself. Mm-hmm. You have 2 young babies, a 6 and an 8-year-old. They don't have a voice. Let me be their voice. And let my work speak for itself. And you decide, what level of participation you want to get into." And after about 45 minutes, she let her defenses down and she expressed her concern about losing custody of her children.
Yeah.
So I was very clear. And I said, well, let's take it. The moment you found out, what did you do? Well, I grabbed my babies and I grabbed my babies and I got out of the apartment. And I said, so that was the moment you found out your kids were being abused. You took immediate action. That's what we call in this business being a protective mother. Mm-hmm. As long as you remain a protective mother, you're going to be in good standing. You won't lose your kids. But I promise you this, if you put your babies anywhere near this guy ever again for any reason, when he calls to apologize and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it," when you feel bad, but I love him, he's not a bad guy, he just did a bad thing, all that stuff that all comes out. If you put your babies anywhere near him, you're going to lose your baby. So there was no ambiguity there at all. It was very clear what it took to keep her babies, and how fast she could lose them. So we were clear. So I said, just break down your day and tell me how this whole thing kicked off, how we're sitting here in this room right now. And she said, well, I thought my boyfriend was cheating on me. So I woke up early and I grabbed his phone and I went through his phone expecting calls and texts from the other woman. And what I got instead was 7 videos and 18 photos of my 6 and 8-year-old being horrifically abused. And I'll spare everybody the details. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is I pulled the memory card out of his phone. I gathered up my girls, and then I came here to the station, and here I am. And so she took the memory card and put it in her phone, and then she showed me the videos and images, and we had multiple victims, multiple occurrences over a prolonged period of time. In our line of work, that's a lifetime case. The evidence is overwhelming and compelling. And he captured, there was probably more video, but what was on his phone is what we were able to capture. And so it, it was clearly him. He's clearly in the videos, his face, her babies, his crimes. And so there's no doubt what I'm looking at. And the evidence was so overwhelming and compelling. And I'm going to skip forward just half a minute.
Mm-hmm.
About 2 years later, when we got to the prelim, the judge would not allow the video evidence to be used in court against the defendant. Says it's too prejudicial against the defendant. So hear this. Bad guy horribly abuses a 6 and an 8-year-old, captures his dirt on video with his phone, keeps it as a trophy. We discover it. And then the judge says that's not allowed because it's too damning to the guy that took the videos, which, and they have to shock the consciousness of the court. But we had an amazing prosecutor that said, okay, no problem, Your Honor. What I'm going to do instead is blow up these giant, 6 foot tall still photos, 6 feet tall by 3 feet wide, frame by frame by frame of what he does to babies when he's alone and has an opportunity. And I'm going to circle the entire courtroom with it. So no matter where the jury looks, they're not going to be able to avert their eyes on what this guy does. And so the judge said, okay, I'm okay with that.
So just to make sure I understand this clearly, we have compelling, obvious evidence, but it's not permissible because it might skew the minds of the jurors to really be against him?
Yes.
And that is allowed?
And that's
Clearly.
allowed. And the burden of proof is beyond reasonable doubt. So I'm providing you beyond reasonable doubt. But no, it's going to shock the consciousness of the court. We will not allow these videos to be played. And it's not the first time this has happened. Usually what they don't want to do is play those videos of a child being horribly abused.
Sure.
And so they do it, and they do it under the premise of, hey, I don't want to re-traumatize the child in the courtroom having these videos being played. Which is okay. Maybe it's understandable, but it was it was that the evidence was that powerful that they paused the video. And so after seeing that, clearly I'm looking at a lifetime case with this guy, and I tell her, I said, under no circumstances are you to put your babies anywhere near him for any reason. And we're having our conversation. We're breaking down the course of her day, and bad guy wakes up, realizes that the memory card's out of his phone, and he starts blowing up her phone. And
while she's there with you. That's what I was going to ask was, does he not recognize his phone is gone, or,
Well, she left the phone but took the card.
Okay.
And he started calling her, and I recorded 3 individual phone calls. Each call was about half hour long. And the first hour, so the first 2 calls was lie, deflected, deny. Wasn't me, didn't do it, don't know what you're talking about. No, I didn't, no, I didn't, no, I didn't, when it's clearly him in the videos. And so the last 10 minutes of the last phone call, he finally, because she was like, yeah, I'm looking at you hurting the babies. She's like, you're lying, I'm watching you do it. So the last 10 minutes of the last call, he gave it an admission, but not a confession, but an admission of guilt. And he said, okay, look, here's the deal. I don't want to talk about it over the phone anymore, but I was offered $50,000 by some guy to make these videos, and we're struggling financially. And so I did it for us so that we could have a better life. And I never hurt the girls. I was always caring and gentle, so they're not going to be messed up for life. And so that makes it okay. And that was the lie that he said to justify the sickness in his mind. And he's like, but I don't want to talk about it over the phone anymore. Why don't you come home and I will tell you everything? And she's like, I'm angry at you. I'll get home when I'm good and ready. You're just going to have to wait. Click. We kill the call. I have still photos, I have live action video, and I have an admission of guilt. I've got all the evidence that I need to go out and, pick this guy up and take him, start the whole process on him. So I'm looking at her and I'm like, okay, you're not going home until I personally come and get you. And until you see me and nobody else, and I don't care if it's the sheriff or the county, it's until you see my face personally, you are not going anywhere near that apartment. I need to go take care of business. I will be gone for many hours. When I am done, I will come get you and I will bring you and the girls back to the apartment myself. And she said, all right. I said, do not accept any phone calls from him. Do not take his calls. Do not communicate with him. Do not, anything. And does he have a way to reach you? It's like, no, I took the only car. So he would have to walk about 4.5 miles, 4 or 5 miles just to get to her mother's house, which was not going to happen. Right. And so I said, okay. She goes, hey, I want you to know that he's got some guns. I don't know exactly what kind they are, but he's got some guns. And she also said, you may go into my apartment. Here's the keys to my apartment. You may go in and you may take anything that you think will help your investigation. And not only did she give me keys, she gave me written consent. We have these forms that are written consent from a person saying, hey, I'm giving you authorization to go in my house. Mm-hmm. Here's the key. So it wasn't even verbal. It was in writing. So I had keys, written consent, and best avenue of approach. She says, don't go right through the pedestrian gate because we're on the second floor. He'll see you guys coming. Take the parking lot in the back. So we went to,
this is actually in my neck of the woods. And I think I remember this incident. It was right across from the high school, but I think I remember.
High school was about 1.5 miles from my house.
Yeah.
So I lived maybe 2 miles from there tops, but I mean, my house was right down the street. Yeah. Right across from the high school. And so she agreed. I got keys and consent. We made a safety plan for her, the kids and grandma, and we got them taken care of. And then I went to the community policing street teams guys, which was my old gang suppression team cops unit. I went back there. And half those guys were my old partners or my former trainees. Mm-hmm. And I went to a guy in particular. His name was Mike Spears. And Mike Spears and I had been friends for, before he even went into law enforcement. So about the 20-year mark. And I said, hey, Mike, I'm going to go out to Lakeside to pick this guy up. I said, why don't you come with me? And the sergeant overheard. And he said, hey, Ollie, we're having a training day. We don't have any casework going on right now. So you can have the whole team. And I never, ever, ever get this much help. Usually when I'm working cases, keep in mind, there's only 10 detectives for the entire county of San Diego for all the areas that the sheriff's department is in control of. Okay. Now, the other cities have their own detectives, but for San Diego County, there's 10 detectives for child abuse. So all the detectives are busy all the time. And it is not uncommon for you to work cases by yourself until it's time to go take action, and then your team will come out and help you because everybody's running around just the same way you are. I had a friend of mine, he was working up in Vista. He had a case up in Vista. His name's Dustin. I say, hey, Dustin, when you get done with your case, why don't you meet me out in Lakeside? Because if this case goes away, I think it's going to go, I'm going to need help getting the telephonic search warrant on the apartment. He said, okay, no problem. I'll meet you there. So we go in there. I have a team. I brief them. We do a background check on the guy. He has a misdemeanor vandalism out of the state of Wisconsin. Nothing to go to the tactical unit. No criminal history. No extensive criminal history that would. We have this whole checklist that we go through, and if you check so many boxes, you send it over to our SWAT team for them to go pick the guy up. He didn't even rate high enough to even send them the paperwork. And that's not uncommon what we found with pedophiles, because I work with gangsters and parolees and bikers, and each time you do something, they have our own. It's like a whole skill set you have to learn with those types of cases.
Right.
With pedophiles, what we found is that they're not type A aggressive at all. They're like socially awkward sometimes. They don't interact well. with adults, and they fantasize about having real and meaningful relationships with children to justify the filth of what they're doing, because in their mind it was a real relationship, but it's just a lie.
Yeah.
So it's all these things that we were learning, and most of them have minimal to no law enforcement history, maybe a speeding ticket, red light violation, a parking ticket, or an accident, but minimal to small, nothing major at all.
Yeah.
And this guy had a misdemeanor vandalism in a different state, and that was all we could find on him after doing the workup. And so it wasn't like we were kicking down the door of a Hells Angels clubhouse. We're going to go get a pedophile. Mm-hmm. My team, the group of detectives that I worked with, we're taking these guys off the street several times a week, all year long. And that's kind of in the 2-year window that I was there, that's what I saw. Doesn't mean it's there all the time, but that's kind of the flavor of it.
Sure. And
so we had so many people, we were able to actually go put surveillance out on the apartment. And the surveillance team got out on the radio and said, yeah, we see him, he's here. And he would come out on the balcony, smoke a cigarette, and look around, and then go back into the apartment. So we knew he was home. We had him nailed specific to a specific location. And so the team moved out. And then, again, I was like, do not talk to him at all. I'll come get you when I'm done. And we drive out there with, I want to say a supervisor, 5 or 6 deputies, and there was even 2 trainees that were there at the time. I had so much help. I had like way over help that I never get. So it was a total blessing. Plus I had the surveillance team. So we get there, we take the back entrance, we surround the whole place. I'm the lead detective, so I need to be the first one through the door and the last one to leave. And I'm responsible for every piece of evidence that comes out of that apartment. So I walk up casually, and we have the place surrounded. I have a team behind me, and I go beat on the door. Now I have keys and consent, and I can walk right in. But experience teaches us you don't walk into somebody's house unannounced. That's a surefire way to have a fight you don't need to have. This job brings plenty of violence with it on its own. You don't need to make it harder. So I beat on the door. I give it an honest 45 seconds to a minute, calling him out by first and last name. It's a tiny apartment, a little 2-bedroom apartment. The whole complex knows, one, the sheriff's department is there and exactly who we want to talk to, because I'm calling him out by first and last name. He's not coming to the door. And after some time goes by, I'm getting ready to use the key. And so I hit the bottom lock first, and I unlock the bottom lock. I'm getting ready to go to the deadbolt. And one of my partners on the back side of the apartment gets on his radio and goes, hey, I hear a little girl screaming, and I cannot tell if it's from the apartment you guys are trying to get into or one next to it. That changes everything. Mm-hmm. That changes everything. The whole dynamics of the case changed with that radio transmission, because now there's a potential for another victim to be inside. So my boss asked me, we're going in. So I try the deadbolt, but the deadbolt is rigged shut so the key won't turn it. It's an old trick that we've seen in the jail 1,000 times. So we know he's home. We know he's inside. He's not coming to the door because he knows what's waiting for him on the other side of the door and doesn't want to be held accountable for his actions. So I'm trying to turn the key. The lock is rigged shut, and I don't have any other options. I'm out of options at this point. Let me try to adjust the camera a little bit. And so my only option left now is to force entry into the apartment. So supervisor asked me, he says, hey, are you going to kick the door? And I said, absolutely. And he gives me the suggestion, hey, mule kick it, which means put your back up to the door. Normally I'm wearing an arm brace, and it would take my whole left arm, and it would be in a sling right now. I'm just have it out of the sling just because the sling starts bothering my neck. And so I put my back to the door, and I kick the door. And the first time I kick it, the bottom half of the door flexes and then snaps back. I thought that was kind of weird. And Mike still teases me about it 13 years later. I couldn't kick the door on the first time. There's a whole thing with that. And then so it's a bright, competition and whatnot. So it's a bright, sunny day. Tomorrow, September 25th in Lakeside, is almost high noon exactly. So I went from a bright outside. And when I kicked open the door the second time, when the door flew open, I took one step into a pitch black apartment. So my eyes had to adjust. And what he'd done is he had covered all the windows. He closed the drapes or the blinds, and then he put sheets and towels or blankets and towels over all the windows and blacked out the apartment. He kind of arranged the furniture to have a strategic advantage. And so I take
You
one
were only
step
there
into,
for, like you said, 45 seconds or so before that. So he did all of this in this time, or he was
he was on the
assuming that you were coming?
phone. He was on the phone with the mom when
Oh,
I was beating on the door and kicked open the door.
so he knew
We
you guys
could
were coming
he
and was
so
prepared.
he so we cannot prove, we have 100% proof they were speaking on the phone when I was beating on the door. What we could never prove was the contents of the conversation. And so when I kick open the door, I take one step into the apartment, and he opens fire, and all chaos breaks loose. So he was about 10 feet from me. He was laying down on his stomach, and he had an M1 Garand. It's an old World War II battle rifle. And it was chambered. It was a sniper variant, so it was chambered in 308. Normally they're 30-06. These are just some little things. So the first round hit me in the left arm, and it almost took my arm off just below the shoulder. It completely. It ripped off the bicep. It destroyed the humerus. Almost completely removed the humerus. The only thing keeping my arm intact was the tricep meat in the back of my arm. And so that hit me in the left arm, and it spun me. First, I came in sideways like this. First round hits me in the left arm, and it spins me. Now we're facing each other, and the gunfight kicks off.
And you're the only one, because you kicked open the door. You're the only one in the room at this time.
I'm the only one that ever makes it into the apartment.
Okay.
And so as soon as he fires the first round, it hits me in the left arm. I spin. I'm facing him. I go through what's called white static, like the old TVs that used to be static in between the channels. And I saw white static in my eyes, and my whole body seized up like the UFC fights when the guy gets knocked out and his body locks up like that. That's what happened to me, and I went on my back. And when I recovered, and I don't know how long I was like that, my best guess is 5, 10, 15 seconds. I'm not sure, so I have to guess. And I'm wondering what truck just hit me, and I'm in agonizing pain. I mean, I just had my humerus bone shattered, my bicep ripped off, my brachial artery destroyed. All those bone fragments went into my chest cavity, formed another bone around the nerve cluster that runs down the side of your neck right here. That later on had to be surgically removed because it was squeezing all the nerves and doing all kinds of fun stuff. I was bleeding like nobody's business. I felt like I got hit. I mean, it's a brachial artery right next to your heart. And it felt like I got hit by a truck and set on fire. It hurt crazy. I mean, maximum amount of pain. I know what a true 10 feels like. As I'm, trying to regain my composure, laying on my back, I hear the gunfire going off. And I see the guy running back and forth inside the apartment, crossing my field of vision, and he's shooting at everybody from different positions inside the apartment.
He's shooting outside.
He's shooting outside
inside,
the apartment.
but he's trying to shoot at the people outside.
Yes, he's trying to shoot at all my partners outside.
So at this point, and you don't obviously know, but he might think you're down.
Yes.
Were you nervous at all? Because you had mentioned before, usually these types of cases, you don't interact with somebody that's typically aggressive, but you did know that he had weapons and guns. So was there any, I'm sure you've been in plenty of these situations before, but were you nervous at all when you were going in there and thinking?
And I'm not trying to sound macho or anything like that. But at this point in my career, I'd been through many, many, many violent encounters. Mm-hmm. And these guys typically are not violent. And I wasn't worried about it. Not everybody has the capability to do violence, but the odds were in my favor that it wasn't. So I was not, in my mind was like this. I said, hey, I have overwhelming numbers. I've put all the pieces on the board to be successful. In my mind, it was going to be like this. I'm beating on the door, bringing him outside, throwing the handcuffs on him, searching the apartment, taking him back to the station, interviewing him, dropping him off at county jail, and then spend the next 6 to 8 weeks working on this case till the preliminary hearing. That's in my mind. That's how this case was going, because I had done it many, many, many times throughout my career. And I was not worried. I wasn't nervous about it.
Right.
We have the spidey senses, like the hairs on the back of our neck. We never ignore those ever. They're right 100% of the time. They've never been wrong. And I was there, and I didn't get worked up, hyped up. And I've been scared plenty of times throughout my career. And this
you
one,
were definitely caught off guard.
I thought I was put everything in place to be successful, so I was confident.
Yeah, understood.
And then when the gunfire started, and even in the midst of the gunfight, all the emotions happen later. Yeah. And I'll explain that, because you're now in a fight for your life. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that matters is, am I alive and can I fight? Nothing else matters. The pain doesn't matter. The blood loss doesn't matter. The situation doesn't matter. Am I alive and can I fight? And if those two answers are yes, that's all I care about for the foreseeable future, and everything else will come later. And it's not to be like, it's not a tough guy thing. It's a matter of fact.
Yeah. No, it's as you're saying that, I'm thinking it's amazing how our bodies work,
And it goes the switch goes on, the gunfight starts. And when I come to, I'm asking myself, what truck just hit me? And I'm running this checklist through my head. I'm like, okay, what just happened? I got shot. Okay, I'm in a gunfight. How bad is it? I don't know. I need to look. So I started at my feet and started looking for holes. I'm scanning. Okay, you're good. And this is where my brain told me my arm was like this. That's how my brain felt it. But I kept looking down there. My arm wasn't there. So it was causing this dilemma. I feel my arm here, but it's not there. Weird. And so I'm looking at this, and meanwhile, my partners are shooting in, and all this chaos is going on around us, and I'm having this conversation. Like, I feel my arm's here, but my arm's not here. Where's my arm? It was actually up over my head this way, but this part was going that way.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, okay, that's really bad. My brachial artery severed. I have about 4 minutes before I pass out. 4 minutes after that, I'm going to be brain dead. So I just need to stay alive long enough for the cavalry to show up and storm the place and come get me. And
amazing that you're having all of this dialogue inside and knowing, what you know in such an intense time.
It would not be uncommon for police officers or detectives to go through with my amount of years on, or similar, because it's the way the job works. Mm-hmm. And it's not unique to me. It's just the nature of the business, I'll say.
Yeah.
And so the thought went through my mind, okay, how bad is it? Let me check. Okay, my arm's bad, my brachial artery's bad. Where's my weapon at? Well, it was in my right hand, and had I kicked the door open front ways, it would have been my right arm that got destroyed. Mm. And this is a part where I don't have a problem.
Blessing number 2 here, right?
Yeah, teaching point number 2.
Yeah.
That's why I always bring up mule kick it, because it sacrificed my left arm to save my right arm, which I needed to get in the gunfight later on. Had I kicked it normally, my right arm would have been destroyed, and I would have been in a hard way, because where was my backup gun that day? In the gun safe. Perfect place for it, in the middle of a gunfight when you need it. I blame myself. I don't blame anybody else, and I don't have any problems discussing failures and mistakes that I make, because this is what happens in real life, in real time. So the next thought goes through my mind: where's my weapon? I have it here at the end of my hand. See bad guy, shoot bad guy. I see him cross my field of vision. I raise my weapon and I start shooting at him. Now, I'm hyped up on adrenaline at this point, so I burn up through too much ammo in that first engagement. I shot about 8 to 10 rounds. Well, he ran past me, went to a back bedroom, and started shooting at all my partners. And so there's a lull in the shooting, at least at us. The shooting continued, but it was on against my partners at the back side of the apartment. So I happened to glance out the apartment door, because I'm within about 2.5, 3 feet of the door. And I look over and I see Mike down on one knee and he's shooting. I saw Craig on one knee shooting. And then the next time I glanced back, I see Craig doubled over, and he got a round through the wall, and it split him from his wrist down to his elbow. So he had all this skin and meat hanging off his arm. And I heard he was a supervisor, Craig. And Craig said, 1199 in cop language, that means the worst possible scenario. Everybody stop what you're doing, get over there and help. He said 1199, shots fired, deputy down. Well, none of that went out because when the suspect was shooting through the walls, it cut his radio wire. So he was putting out all this stuff, but his radio had been cut. And so the only thing that went out was shots fired, deputy down. 1199, shots fired, deputy down. But he put a whole list of instructions. He goes, I need ballistic shields, long guns, and a rally point set up over here. We need to do a detective rescue. He was very clear and articulate. He had I think he had 28 years on at the time, and he had a lot of experience, and he was very clear, and he put this whole list out. I heard him talking it over the radio. And I'm like, okay, the 1199's gone out. I've been through a handful of those in my career. In a matter of 4 to 5 minutes, this place is going to have plenty of people to come help me. So I wasn't worried about it. And again, I'm not trying to sound cavalier or I'm all this, that, and the third. It's just as these things progress, this is what I know is going to happen. I know I'm hurting, and I know I'm in a bad way, and I know I'm in the fight for my life. And the only thing that went through my mind was, do not fail your wife and kids. You're not dying in this nasty child molester's apartment today. Kill this man and stop playing around. And that was on loop, on repeat. And I must have heard that in my head a million times. And so I don't see him. And I looked out and I remember yelling at Mike, hey, he's got an M1. And I talked to Mike later on. He never heard me say that. Well, bad guy's low crawling on his belly and I don't see him. And he grabs a piece of the door trim that came off when I kicked open the door, and he hooked the door and he pulls the door shut and he locks me in there. Redoes the deadbolt and runs down the hallway. This was the first of 3 times that I thought I was going to die. Wow. So he runs down the hallway, and then he starts playing peekaboo around the corner. He starts, bobbing back and forth around the corner. And now this whole time, there's a couple of things that I haven't discussed that I want to make clear. I have tunnel vision so bad, all I can see is about 10 feet directly in front of me and about 3.5 feet wide. That's all I can see. I have what they call auditory exclusion. He was firing a high-powered rifle in an enclosed apartment, and it sounded like dud firecrackers, like they were dud. Outside, when I talked to all my partners later, that they thought he was shooting missiles because it was so loud. But for me, I barely heard it. And I didn't have time to process what was going on fully, because it was, are you alive? Can you fight? You're not dying in this nasty child molester's apartment today. He peeks around the corner. We go for round number 2. I start shooting at him. This time I hit him because every time I hit him, he would cry out profanity. I shot him 3 times. I shot him twice in the stomach, or just above the belly button, a few inches above the belly button. Then he turned to run, and I shot him once in the butt. And he ran back down the hallway and was shooting at my partners on the outside again. He comes back, he peeks around the corner, he shoots me, and it hits me in the chest this time, and it punches a hole. Now I'm wearing a vest, but it's what we call a level 3 vest. It's not rated for rifle rounds. So the rifle round punched right through me like a piece of paper. The entry wound was the size of my hand. Let me adjust the camera. I'm sorry I keep having to mess with the camera. The entry wound is exactly where I'm touching it, and it was the size of my hand going in, and it was 2 of my hands coming out my back. Oh my God! And it took out my rib, my lung, my diaphragm, my spleen, my intestines. It got everything, but it missed my heart and missed my liver by the grace of God. Wow! And so it punches a hole right through me like a piece of paper. And what happened to me medically is, I guess I was in so much pain already from when I got shot in the arm. I barely felt getting shot in the chest, and it caught me off guard because I was expecting the same amount of pain that I was already experiencing, but now I thought it was going to be doubled. But I got shot through the chest, through and through, And it was, I barely felt it. And I was wow. And I said, and he didn't shoot me in the head, which surprised me, which allowed me to fight a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So my partner, Mike, while I'm locked inside the apartment on the other side of the door, he starts firing into the apartment. And that pushes the guy off of me a couple of times, which allows me to regroup and get my thoughts. And I ultimately run out of ammunition in my weapon. So I dump the magazine. I set my weapon mid-thigh. I have black dress pants on, black leather shoes. My weapon is black, so I set it mid-thigh. It blended in perfectly. I have a black tactical vest on with a long sleeve purple shirt underneath it in the tie. And right here where my pocket is, I had 4 spare magazines. But when I got shot in the chest, my vest shifted over 45 degrees. My whole vest moved. Okay. And so every time I was trying to reach for my ammo, it wasn't where it normally was. And it took every ounce of strength and concentration to go from here to here. And then, because I'm in condition black, I'm maxed out, I'm bleeding, I have catastrophic and life-threatening injuries. If you take a gallon of milk and you just pour it, that's how bad I was bleeding. And I'm losing blood at this crazy rate. And I can't get my hand to cooperate to go from here to here. I mean, it took all my strength and concentration to get my hand to move it, to undo a Velcro flap, and I pulled out my spare magazine. So I'm staring at the magazine. I'm walking myself. Okay, you got to do A, B, C, and D to make your weapon ready to get back in the fight. And as I'm going through this mental checklist, bad guy walks over and he kicks it out of my hand. And he's standing over the top of me with his rifle, and he's looking dead at me. And he's about a foot away from me, staring at me with his rifle. And he asked me, and he said, "Where's your duty weapon at?" Well, God's honest truth and all the fun that I was having, I forgot where I put it. And so I looked up at him and I said, "I don't know, man." And he believed me. Thank you, God. And he turned around and he walked away. I thought he was going to execute me right there. Well, I didn't know at the time he was out of bullets. And so he wanted to kill me with my own gun.
Oh.
And so he walked away. And then with his type of rifle, when you run out of ammo, you eject they call it a clip for that specific rifle, and it makes a ping. It goes ping, and it ejects, and then you put in a fresh clip of 8 rounds. Well, I hear the ping, and that triggers me to be like, hey, he's out of ammo, and I'm out of ammo. First one to reload wins. First one to reload gets to shoot, and I promise everybody that hears this, nobody wanted to kill that guy more than I did. And so I redouble my efforts. I'm frantically reaching for my ammunition, but now I had a big pouch. They weren't individually secured. So when I took one out, 3 of them fell over horizontally. So now my hand had to go in further, which I'm
struggling. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I am hurting, and I'm doing everything I can to like right now it's easy because there's no pressure and I'm not bleeding. But in the midst of this gunfight, it's taking everything I can to try to go back and get my ammo, and I can't reach it. Right. Well, then I hear him insert what sounds like a fresh magazine, and for the first time at this point, I start to panic. Up until this point, everything was a checklist. This, and this. But now I know I'm in a race to reload. First one to reload, just to shoot, and I'm behind, and I started to panic, which made my motor skills, which were already shot. I don't have fine motor skills. I've got barely gross motor skills. And now I'm panicking, which makes it 100 times worse. And it's becoming overwhelming. And so now my hand's not cooperating. The ammo's falling down, and I can't get it. And then I hear him cycle his weapon. And that was the moment that I knew right there that I was beat. And never mind the gunshot, never mind the pain, never mind the blood loss, never mind any of that I knew at that moment that I just failed my family. I failed my wife and my kids, and the weight of that failure almost choked the life out of me right there. I have one job, and that's to come home after every shift. I can find another job. I can go to the hospital. I can have surgery. I can get a cast. I can get fixed up and patched up, but I cannot get killed. That's the promise I made when I took this job. I said, I will not get killed at work. And I said, I'll do everything in my power to make sure I come home after every shift, regardless of the consequences, even if that means finding another job. And so I knew I was beat and I knew I was going to die. And the sense of failure almost choked the life out of me right there. And now, at the worst possible moment, all the emotions hit me like a tidal wave. Anger, frustration, sadness, embarrassment. I let a pedophile take me out. I'm a competitive guy. I don't like to lose. And I let a pedophile of all people take me out. And this is what they're going to say at my funeral, that he was killed by a pedophile. And it's going to be an embarrassment to my family name. And all this sense of failure was just crushing me. And it all hit me all at the same time at the worst possible moment. And it was overwhelming. And then thank God there was this little voice that lit off in the back of my head that said, hey, you're not dead. Get your weapon, make it hot, kill this man, stop playing around. So it's like somebody slapped me in the face, got me out of my pity party, get back to work. So now you're right, I'm not dead, and it's time to go back to work to get my ammo. So I'm frantically, it's everything. I mean, sweating bullets over this thing, trying to get to my ammo. But the anxiety level is building up inside of me. And it gets so bad that it paralyzes me to the point where I can't take it anymore. I know I can't get my weapon. I know I can't get my ammo. I know I'm dying here, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, if today's my day to die, so be it. I said, but I'm not going to roll up into a little ball. I'm not going to beg for my life. And I'm going to look this guy straight in the eyes, and I'm going to take his best shot, and I'm going to see what he's made of. And I raised my eyes to accept my death that I knew was coming, that there's nothing I could do to change my fate. And that's what brings me to your podcast today, because what I got was the greatest miracle that ever happened of all times. It was breathtaking. Instead of a bullet to the forehead that I knew was coming, what I got was our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I did not see him appear. When I raised my eyes to accept my death, he was already there. And this warm bathwater feeling just rinsed me over from head to toe, like somebody dipped me in a jacuzzi. I felt zero pain. I was breathing normally like there was nothing wrong with me. My arm didn't hurt at all, and I was in agony. I was at complete and total peace. You could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet in the middle of a prolonged gunfight. And I'm in awe. And I get asked this, everywhere I go, Ollie, what did he look like? You guys got to hear this. He was wearing a white robe. He had a white sash around his waist. He had dark brown shoulder-length hair, kind of curled up at the end. He has a dark brown beard. And my man has a nice tan. He had his back to me, so I didn't see his eyes, so I can't tell you I didn't see him. But he turned back like that, so I saw a side profile. That's how I knew about the tan. And he's not large in stature, but he's magnificent. And I was in awe. And I was in complete and total awe. I was standing in front of Jesus Christ. I was laying in front of him. And I knew the moment that I saw him that it was Jesus and nobody else. Buddha wasn't there. Shiva, Krishna, Confucius, Muhammad, Allah. I'm 100% convinced that was my dying breath, and on my dying breath, it was Jesus and Jesus Christ alone. And I don't know how long I'm sitting in there in awe, but I get the courage to speak. And I said, Lord, I trust you completely. What do you want me to do with this guy? And where he was standing, he was surrounded by 2 rings of white light with these inscriptions inside the rings. I never seen him before or after, so I called him writing from heaven.
Where Jesus was standing,
where he was standing, on the floor was 2 rings of white light. And inside those rings were these inscriptions that I'd never seen before. So I call them writing from heaven. And I don't know what language it was from heaven. Directly behind him was a little wooden stool. He sat down on the stool, and from my vantage point, I could see there was a small wooden desk in front of him that had a black bottle of ink with a white feather sticking out of it. And he takes the white feather out, and he just starts writing on the desk. And he puts the feather back in the ink bottle, and that note comes off the desk like a leaf in the wind and lands on my tactical vest right on my chest. And I picked it up and I read it. And in beautiful calligraphy, it says, I want you to bless him. In the middle of a gunfight, he didn't tell me to reload and finish the job. He said, I want you to bless the man that you're trying to kill, and he's trying to kill you. And that describes his nature perfectly, because I'm humanly and worldly, and I want vengeance, and I want payback, and I want to kill this guy. I want to kill him for hurting me. I want to kill him for hurting those kids and hurting my partners. And that was not Jesus' way. That's man's way. God's way says, I want you to bless your enemy. It was so profound and overwhelming. The only thought that went through my mind was, yes, sir. And I looked at the bad guy, and he's staring flat-faced. Jesus is about 3 feet from me, and he's about 3 feet on the other side of Jesus. And he's just staring emotionless. But he's holding his rifle. He's not saying a thing. He's just flat. And I
So
looked at him.
he's having this encounter too, perhaps.
To the best of my ability, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at him and I say, God bless you, brother. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't say anything. And I said, God bless you, man. I'm going to pray for you. He had a fully loaded rifle. All he has to do is pull the trigger and execute me, and I'm dead. And he set his rifle down because I was obedient to what the good Lord told me to do. And then I went on to have this amazing encounter with Christ, because it's very difficult to explain time in the presence of the Lord, because I have this beautiful encounter with Jesus and the bad guy. But because Jesus is the only reason why I'm still alive, he gets to go first. But I wanted to illustrate, to let everybody know, in the midst of this chaos and gunfight, the good Lord, he didn't ask me. He told me to bless the shooter, and I did. And out of obedience, he set a fully loaded rifle down, because I was obedient to what the good Lord. And I want to share that when the good Lord speaks to you, and he will, and you'll know it's from him. Just do what he says, regardless of what it is, whether it be small or whether it be great or any degree in between. And watch what happens when you're obedient to Jesus. I can promise this is not bad. It's not bad. And I didn't realize it at the time, but this is the first of my encounter with Jesus. And it encompasses, I am real and my word is real. That's why I like to describe everything that I've described up to this point.
Were you a person of faith prior to this?
This was September 25th, 2012. I was saved July of 2009.
Okay.
So I was new in my faith and new in my walk. Definitely saved. And that's a whole nother catastrophe of my life before God. And then there's my life after Jesus, which is awesome.
What would you, just to also ask this too, and I'm sure you have been asked this, to the skeptics out there that say, you were losing a lot of blood. Did you have this hallucination? That question. And then you kind of touched on it too, but how did you know it was Jesus? You saw the back of him, the side profile, and then when he was writing at the desk, I would assume it was still the back that was facing you. And I've heard this explained from other people as well. You just know, but I wanted to get your take on that as well.
I recognized him immediately. My soul recognized him. Yeah. I recognized him. I called him Lord, and he responded. Mm-hmm. It was Jesus and nobody else. And I know that people, hey, your blood loss, this, that, and the third. Yes. I said, but even the atheist knows what a miracle is. Mm-hmm. Even somebody who does not believe, refuses to believe. And if you'll just take the medical evidence alone, even if you can call me a liar and say I'm making it up, I'm not mad at you. I share in love. Listen to the medical evidence when I'm done, and I'll bullet point all the medical evidence, and then you decide. You know what the word miracle means, and tell me if that's not a miracle. Yeah. Because I believe you'll come to the same conclusion that it's a miracle regardless. And yeah. I was in the hospital for over 100 days, and I couldn't talk because I had a trach and I had tubes in my mouth and in my nose, and I had all these holes in my body. I told my wife, Gracie, everything that happened as soon as they put in this valve in my trach that would allow me to speak. And I said, I don't understand how I was laying down by the door, but I was able to read all the notes on the desk. It doesn't make sense. You can't lie down on the ground and read a bunch of notes on a table. It doesn't work that way.
So there were more notes because you had said one
that flew off and landed on my tactical vest that said, bless the bad guy. But there was 5 other notes.
Okay.
And that's the part where I'm at right now, where I don't know it at the time. But when you go through critical incidents, your mind is processing vast amounts of information very rapidly. So you will get the meat and potatoes of it. But little fine details will pour in months, days, weeks, months, even years later. You'll remember something that you didn't remember 2 years right after it happened, and it was 2 or 3 years ago. And that what ended up being the case with me. I don't know how many months. It took many, many months till I realized I was out of my body with my hurt arm resting on Jesus' shoulder. And I read the rest of the notes on the table that he had. They were notes and instructions for me and for my life and for my family. And I got done reading all those notes. I knew exactly what they meant and what they were for. And when I was done reading the notes, the floor of the apartment, I was standing behind him. He was sitting on the stool. He had the little desk and the bottle of ink and the feather. And my hurt arm resting on his left shoulder. And I feel no pain. I'm at complete peace. And the floor clears away. And he shows me the gates of hell. He showed me the gates of hell. He was merciful. It's a rectangle entrance lined with gray and black stone. But he was merciful. He covered it with a black cloud so that I couldn't see inside. But I could hear the torments and the screaming. And it was so profound that it changed my heart to, I don't want anybody on planet Earth, and I don't care what you've done, to spend 1 second in what I heard with my ears, and I didn't even see it with my eyes. It had that. There's no words in any language to adequately describe the level of suffering and pain. And I needed that to forgive the guy that shot me. Because 100% full disclosure under my own power, there's no way I would have been able to forgive that guy. I could have given a good show and said, no, I forgive him. I'm not mad. But when it's just me and God and nobody else is looking, I would have wanted payback for hurting me, for taking me out, for hurting the kids. I would have wanted revenge. And as a pedophile. And then up until that point, until I heard this suffering, he had it coming. And then I heard what true torment sounded like, and it changed my whole perspective. It is lost or saved, and that is it. Mm-hmm. There is no us versus them, you versus me, white, black, purple, pink, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, you name it. You can mix any division. That's the enemy's playbook, divide and conquer.
Yep.
And as long as we're fighting each other, we're not sharing the gospel, and we're not loving on people the way Christ called us to love on people. And we're not bringing the light to a fallen and broken world. And that's his greatest tactic, is to keep us fighting amongst each other. Mm-hmm. And so out of that, after I hear that torment, it softens my heart. And out of that black cloud came a giant red dragon. If you go to the book of Revelation, chapter 12, Satan, that great red dragon of old, some versions will say serpent of old. And he showed me Satan in his true form. And I'm standing behind Christ. Boy, we're sitting at the desk. I'm looking down through the floor to the gates of hell. It is a long way away from where I'm standing. This is a massive red dragon, and he was huge. And my best description of him is the dragon in the Lord of the Rings series, that red dragon sitting on a pile of gold. And he was about that big, too. And he was furious, and he was whipping his head and his tail, and he was clawing, he was thrashing around like crazy. Christ never speaks to me, but it is very clear. This is our enemy. This is what the human race is up against. Every soul on planet Earth is the enemy of the soul. And I'm showing him to you in his true form, so when you see him again, you'll recognize him. And that vision goes away, and I'm back by the door where I thought I was the whole time for my third and final vision. And when I kicked open the door, there was a little bit of wall space and then an opening. It lit up like a movie projector, and it showed the skyline of the city of San Diego from the Coronado ferry landing. And the Coronado was near and dear to my heart. Many years prior to my law enforcement career, I was a deep sea diver in the Navy, and that's where I met my wife in Coronado. And that's where I proposed to her. And many years later, my son proposed to his girlfriend there. Mm-hmm. So he put me in a spot that I recognize and understand. And I'm standing there, I'm like, hey, I'm in Coronado. I'm staring at the skyline of the city of San Diego, and I'm looking right at from the perspective of the ferry landing. Because it was on the wall was the skyline of the city of San Diego. Now, the interesting thing, though, that to the left was a circular clock, and to the right was a calendar. Now, the interesting fact about the calendar wasn't a monthly calendar. It was a daily calendar, which I'll talk more about that in a minute. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. I'm staring at the skyline of the city of San Diego. It's got a clock and a calendar. And then some gray clouds rolled in over the top. It was a little bit of lightning, some drizzle, a light rain. The bay water started washing up into the street. And then the clock is like if you turn on an old fan and it goes so fast, it's a complete and total blur. So it was big hand, little hand, circular clock. It was a complete and total blur. It was spinning so fast. But the calendar was thick like old Yellow Pages. When you run your thumb through the Yellow Pages and the pages turn real quick. So the word teaches us no man knows the date nor the hour. I don't either. But then every building, every window, every blade of grass, every person, place, and thing was burning and on fire in San Diego from as far north to as far south as I can see. The whole skyline, it was all burning and on fire. End times biblical prophecy. What the Bible says will come to pass, period. I stake my eternity on it. But it was not about fear. Mm-hmm. It was about, the message was crystal clear. This day is coming, but there's still time to humble yourself before the Lord, get right with the Lord, lead your families to the Lord so that you don't suffer the day that's reserved for the unbelievers. And it was a message of hope, and as terrifying and powerful and overwhelming and, horrible and amazing all at the same time. This horrendous display of pure power was not about fear. It was about before this time gets here, there's still time to humble yourself before the Lord, is to repent. So it was a call for repentance and to return to faith and return to Christ, and men to lead their family and their children to the Lord. It is lost in a generation. If I don't lead my children, they won't lead theirs. And it's lost in one generation. And that vision goes away. And now I'm back by the door where I thought I was the whole time. And I don't see Jesus anymore. It's just me and bad guy. And at this point, we're getting close to 10 minutes. Bad guy looks at me and says, would you like to crawl out to your friends now? And I said, yeah, I'm ready to go. Now think about the blood loss, the injuries. I've got a hole blown through my body the size of a grapefruit. My left arm is only attached by tricep meat. I'm free bleeding, no first aid. I should have been dead minutes ago. Mm-hmm. I should have been brain dead minutes ago. And I'm having a conversation with a shooter, and he asked me, would you like to crawl out to your friends now? He tries to open the door for me. Now there's a rescue team assembled at the bottom of the stairs. And where I get the time frame from is because I know, based on the radio traffic, how long had passed when the rescue team is assembled at the bottom of the stairs. And it was about the 10-minute mark. I've had all the catastrophic and life-threatening injuries, no medical aid, and I'm still conscious and talking. And I said, yeah, I'm ready to go. That guy tries to open the door. He makes it halfway to the door. I don't know what the rescue team sees. They open fire on the house. He goes diving back to where he was originally. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to see that guy again, so I guess I got to figure it out. And I give him credit. He got up a second time, but this time he duck walked real low and tried to make it to the door a second time. Rescue team opens fire a second time. He goes diving back. And
he's trying to make it to the door to save you, it sounds like, at this point.
At this point, he's trying to open the door to let me out of the apartment.
Yeah.
And And everybody outside already thinks I'm dead, so I'm not angry at them for this.
Mm-hmm.
So they open fire. He goes diving back, and he turns around. This time he looks at me, he looks back at me, and he shrugs his shoulders like, "Hey, man, I'm trying."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, "Oh, it's all right." And then another crazy thing happens. He takes off running this time, and he goes full Superman, and he lands right next to me. We're shoulder to shoulder. So I'm on my back. He's on his back. Our shoulders are touching. I'm looking this way at him. He's looking this way at me. We're both all shot and bleeding. I'm all shot and bleeding. He's all shot and bleeding. And he looks right at me and he says, "I'm done, man. I'm done." And I said, "It's going to be all right." And he goes, "Hey, I got an idea." I said, "Oh, yeah, what's that?" He said, "Let's go together." Oh, man, this is the second time I thought I was going to die. I thought he brought a handgun that I didn't see. So I thought he was going to execute me and then kill himself, or execute me and shoot it out with my partners and be killed. And I didn't know what else to say. And I was running out of options. I just spent this amazing time with Jesus. And I know where I'm going. And I got a glimpse of where he's probably going. So the only thing that went through my mind was, "I'm ready, man. Let's go."
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped and he goes, "I can't do it, man. I just can't do it."
Mm-hmm.
And I looked, and that was the last time I saw Jesus. Because when he was telling me this, Jesus was only about 3.5 feet away from me. And when I look back to tell him I'm ready, let's go, and he says I can't do it, when I look back, I didn't see Jesus anymore. That was the last time I saw him. And so he gets up and he runs and he jumps back to where he was when I first kicked open the door. And he says, "I'm done, man. I'm done." So I take a few deep breaths and I think, well, I'm looking at the rifle. He's not trying to shoot me. It's time for me to go. Now, I'm not sure how the door gets open. I attribute it to the grace of God. I didn't open it. I'm not in the condition to be turning handles and manipulating locks. So, but by the grace of God, the door gets open. I'm not exactly 100% sure. So the door is partially open, and I start making, now the whole time, and I forgot to mention this, and this is important. The whole time when I first got shot, when I got shot in the arm, even before I got shot through the chest, that door was wide open before he crawled and pulled it shut. I wanted to get up and run out the door and go get medical attention on my left arm. My body was frozen. My legs would not work. My body would not respond to my commands. I mean, I crack jokes about it now. I tried to get up and my legs said no. I said, "Well, argue about it outside. Come on, it's time to get out of here." But my body refused to move. It refused. You can tell your hand to move and it moves. I could not move. And I believe I was firmly planted there for a reason.
Yeah.
I believe this whole experience that I'm going through is to offer hope. And I never believe it was punishment for 1 second. I believe it was a lesson. And the lesson is to bring hope to a dark and fallen and broken world.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can relate to not having hope. I can relate to being angry at God. I can relate to having no faith. I can relate. And I just want to bring hope. And
Do you think that the Lord chose to show you all of this maybe because of the nature of the work that you had done? I mean, I know, I'll pivot a little bit, but I know that you're no stranger to high profile and heartbreaking cases. This happened in 2012, and then it was 2001 that had the Santana High School shooting, which was also in our neck of woods, but that received international attention. I think it was a freshman that opened fire, killed 2 students. Many were injured. But if I'm correct, you were one of the first deputies to rush in. You were the one that ultimately handcuffed this shooter. And, so you being in dangerous situations with people who, I don't want to say the people are evil, but the spirit behind what they're doing is clearly evil.
Yes.
I'm just wondering in my head, were you chosen to experience this because you've seen the dark, you've seen the evil, and to bring
spiritual warfare on the highest level. And I didn't understand it as a kid and as a young adult when I would see the things that I would see.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have a discussion about that another time. But it all ties into, was I chosen? I believe so. I believe that this was my path put on by God so that I could share light in a fallen and broken world and bring light to the evil exists.
Mm-hmm.
Good and evil, the old, it's not cliche, it's not old fashioned. There is a real and present enemy that hates your soul.
Yeah.
Because you have redemption, you have the availability to be redeemed, and they do not. Their tactic is very simple. According to the word of God, Satan is the father of lies, and all he speaks is lies because that's all he knows. But one thing he also knows is how he knows the Bible intimately, inside and out, and he knows how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And he does not want anybody to read the Bible or have a connection with God because it's freedom, and he wants you bound. He wants you bound in the chains of sin and the slavery that comes along with that, and the legal authority that he gets by your rebellion and rejection of God. And he knows he's beyond redemption. So it's a simple fact. He's basically, I'm screwed. So I'm taking as many of you with me as I can. He rebelled against God first because he knew we were going to sit in judgment of the angels. And he, in his mind, we're made of mud and clay. And he was perfect. And we're going to sit in judgment over him. And he rebelled against God. Because I'm beautiful and perfect. And I'm not going to let somebody made out of mud ultimately sit in judgment of me. And that's why he hates us with such a passion that he's destined for the lake of fire, and his mission is to take as many people as he can with him. And when we see the manifestation of evil, because the time is running out, and he knows it. So he's ramping up everything. Things that we wouldn't see 10, 15, 20 years ago were blatant.
Yeah.
I'll do a few examples. Every other show is witchcraft and demonic and this, that, and the third. And there's articles written about, satanic worship, satanic church, stuff you wouldn't see before is open and displayed. He's celebrated with a TV show called Lucifer. I could go on for days about this. It just, so yes, I believe, to answer your question in a long-winded form, that I believe that I was picked to go through this. And again, I never thought it was a punishment. It was a lesson, because I also know what it's like to have no faith. And I also know what a life is in walking in rebellion and disobedience, because if you knew me before I came to truly know the Lord, not when I was faking it, but when I truly came to know the Lord, if you knew me before, it's a night and day difference.
Mm-hmm.
Hard-headed, hot-tempered, foul-mouthed, every other word an F-bomb, no empathy, no sympathy. If I showed up at your house and put you in jail, it's because the lifestyle you were living. Don't come crying to me because you live in violation and now you got to go deal with the court system.
Night and day difference.
Night and day difference. It's lost and saved.
From that encounter. From this
encounter, and I haven't even made it out the apartment yet or got to the hospital yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's even funny doing this podcast with you. You can feel. I mean, you're human, but and you've been trained in this. You've seen trauma and loss and chaos and all of the above. But even listening to you share the story, it's like I can even hear the change throughout this story. Who you were before this encounter, in the way that you were thinking, and then now it's a whole, like you said, it changed your heart. You can hear the transformation that took place. What does this say to you? And what would you say to somebody listening about forgiveness? Has that
so
changed
hard.
your message there?
Okay, let's talk about forgiveness. And a lot of times it's family that's wronged us the worst. The ones we love hurt us the deepest. And that you hold those scars and that the pain from that encounter. And it's hard. Like, I'm never going to forgive you. I may forget, but I'm not going to forgive you. And the forgiveness is not okaying what happened, is to release you from the bondage that it puts you in. Holding unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, because it rots you from the inside. With stress, stress turns into any number of physical ailments that are all bad for you. And there's a lot of things that you're like, well, there's no way I can forgive. My dad beat and molested me for years, and you want me to forgive him. Okay. You don't have to forgive him on your own. And I would not have been able to forgive the guy that shot me on my own. But the answer is in Christ. Take the burden and lay it at his feet, and let him work on your heart to soften it, to forgive, and you'll find the freedom that you're looking for. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Have you heard? I mean, I know this story is made news, but have you heard anything about the man, the mom? Have you
Oh, yeah.
ever connected with him to hear if he
Yes.
experienced that encounter too?
Let me jump into that.
Yeah.
So we're just about the end of the apartment. My partners outside, they challenge me twice because they see movement and they think I'm the bad guy. So they said, identify yourself or you'll be fired upon. Now I'm trying to yell out to them that it's me, not to shoot. But remember, I have a collapsed lung. My other lung is barely functioning. My diaphragm's all tore up with shrapnel. I got bullet fragments everywhere inside my body. So when I think I'm yelling, it's probably no louder than a whisper. And so they open fire on me. Boom, 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 boom. All these bullets are going over my head. And I was like, man, that didn't work. So I tried getting on the radio. I tried yelling. I tried waving my hand. They opened fire on me a second time. Boom, 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 boom. All these rounds are going over my head. And then apparently I wasn't having a bad enough day, so I got time for jokes. And I was like, the good Lord did not just come down here, spare me from being executed, give me notes and instructions for the rest of my life, show me the gates of hell, show me end times, show me Satan, show me end times biblical prophecy for one of my partners to shoot me in the head. Besides, they're aiming way too high, and you're down here on the floor, so you're going to be fine. I ultimately reached over and grabbed my bad arm by the elbow, and I hoisted it like a flag, and I waved it like that. And all the nerves are cut, so I don't feel it. And somebody outside said, hey, Ollie, we see you, man. Come on out. So I used my head, and I pry the door open, and I push. I left. If you go back and you look at the crime scene photos, I kicked out of my shoes. My glasses fell off. I left my weapon there, and I'm just pushing with everything I got to make it out the door. And I make it halfway out the door, and I run out of energy because I'm exhausted, and I have a tremendous amount of blood loss. Rescue team rushes up the stairs to grab me, and as they take me down the stairs, my arm got caught in the banister, which was a good thing because I was just about to pass out, and it actually woke me up because I woke up because my head was being shaken back and forth like this. And one of my partners was like, he's stuck, he's stuck, he's stuck. So they unhooked my arm from the banister, and it wrapped around my neck this way, the wrong way. And I knew that arm was gone. But I was okay with it because I was like, it's 2012. We've got soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan coming home missing arms and legs, and I'm going to be just fine. And they're dragging me down the stairs, and my vest starts. My partner here was a school resource officer over at LCAP, and I'm bleeding so bad all over him. It's dripping. I remember it was dripping off his eyelashes and running down his face onto it. And I said, I can't breathe, and he was kind and loving. He said, shut up, I'm busy. And so we round the corner, and then boom, he drops me. And if he was here, he'd be having a fit right now, jumping up, yelling and screaming, no, I didn't drop you. I'm telling the story. I got the microphone. He dropped me. And here's what happened, and here's why. And here's what, not that he dropped me is not important at all. That guy had a change of heart, picked up his rifle, started shooting at all my partners again. And so whether he set me down or dropped me doesn't matter. But what he did after that was important, that he dove on top of me. And he laid down his body on top of mine so that I wouldn't take any more bullets. And he knew he was going to get shot. And he did it anyway. And you'll never hear about that in the newspapers or news articles because we're all crazy and we all just want to shoot people for the fun of it.
I'm glad.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to spend years in court and litigation over shooting somebody because it seems like a good idea.
Yeah. That's
the last thing we want to do.
Yeah.
And we will if we have to. We don't want to. I didn't want to shoot this guy. I don't want to shoot anybody, but I will if I have to. And he laid down on top of me. And not only did he protect me with his body, there was a poor mom that had two little boys, like 3 and 5, 2 and 4, very young. It was a mom, and she was a Hispanic mom with two little boys, and she ran out of the apartment directly below us. So we have a prolonged shootout going on the upstairs floors above her. She's trapped underneath. She runs out and hides behind a building. And he is the human shield for me, for a mom, and 2 babies he's never met before. And he did it willingly, and he knew he could get shot. And he said, no, I'll stand in the way of the bullets, and I won't let you guys get shot. I'll take the bullets for you guys. And that was one example of many other examples of selfless courage and sacrifice. And it was not fake or macho, nothing. It was true sacrifice because he loved me. He didn't want me to get shot. He didn't want those babies to get hurt.
Yeah.
And he offered his body up as a shield to protect babies.
Yeah. And there's no time to premeditate this stuff. I mean,
it was instantaneous.
So, yeah.
And they end up dragging me out around the corner, out of the line of fire. There was an off-duty San Diego PD officer who was a SWAT officer. He was helping with, he was coming down the hill at the intersection of Ashwood and Mapleview, and he saw all the cars, heard the shooting, grabbed his weapon in his gear bag, and just said, hey, I'm here to help. And he ultimately he got training from Navy SEALs 2 weeks before the shooting. And the training had all these mannequins laid out. And the SEALs were teaching the San Diego SWATs. They said, hey, our guys are bleeding to death out in the fields out in Afghanistan because they're too far from medical aid. So we have these really good trauma kits. And we want to train you guys how to use them to help your partners out. And the mannequin that he trained on had my exact same injuries on it. But that was just a coincidence, right?
No. I mean, so many miracles, just even starting with the amount of people that were there that day. And the list goes on from there.
List goes on.
But it really shows you how God's hand, I mean, I think people have a hard time understanding this. How does God allow, this type of incident to take place? But we're in a world that this is going to happen.
The premise is this, and everybody overlooks this very simple fact. When they took the keys of dominion, when they took the dominion from Adam and Eve from the fall, it entered, sin and evil entered into our world, and it hasn't stopped, and it's only gotten worse over time. And so it was, how did God allow? Well, God allowed when we rebelled against God, and we fell. We fell for the lie, which Satan's continually lying. And they fell for it. And this is the consequences of living in a broken. You cannot discount. If you're saying, why did God allow? This wasn't God's plan for earth. It was far different. We have a sick, fallen, and broken world that's infected and dying with sin. We're in a dying world because of the consequences of sin. Promoted by and deceived by Satan in the garden, all the way back to the fall of man. And that's the how. That's why does evil exist? We allowed it to enter through our rebellion. And over here, listen, I don't believe. Well, you believe in evil. Yeah. You believe that there's good and that there's evil. And you can see we live in an evil world in evil times. Evil doesn't sleep. It doesn't take a day off. It manifests itself. And we're called to be ambassadors. And I can argue, there's many arguments for and against. Sometimes the church has done an amazing job, and sometimes they've done a horrible job. Mm-hmm. And they've turned people away from God when we're called to share the light, to share the gospel, meaning good news, that there's a way out of this mess, and that way out is through Christ. And that, everything by the design of the earth is lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and pride of life. It's anything but Jesus. If you love the world loves you, but the world owns you. And who owns the world? The enemy does. And so you can go to your children's school and try to start a Bible study there and watch the chaos that enhances. But you can go start Club X, Club Y, Club Z, Club anything but Jesus, and it will be fine.
Yeah,
You
I
can
think
open up.
it's the whole we're in the world, not of the world.
Exactly.
And
We're here until we're
yeah.
called home. And we all have an expiration date, and we don't know what that time is. And while I'm here, my mandate is very clear. Whoever God puts in my path in love, share Jesus Christ with them. I may be the only Jesus somebody ever sees.
Hmm.
I want to be able to say I planted seeds in love. I don't come at anybody in condemnation because I'm not perfect. I'll be my sin will put me right in the pit right next to them. I'm trying to say there's a way out, and that way out is Christ. And I'm not too proud to beg. I beg you, go look at it. Go spend time with him alone and spend time with him in prayer.
Has your story had a ripple effect on the people, whether it be in your, law enforcement, the people around you there, people in your family, community? Have you
Yes.
noticed changes because of what you
I,
experienced?
I've seen the biggest thing I've seen is well, there's been so many blessings that's coming out of this. My life has changed 180 degrees. My focus is share the message with the lost and the lost of the lost better. People that I would normally have no empathy and no sympathy for, the prisoners that are locked up. I have a big heart for them now, whether they're lost or the lost. Guys sitting on death row, they need Christ more than anybody. Guys locked up in prison, we're not enemies, you're just lost. And you got sucked into the chaos. And I'll bring this up too. Why is some people have such chaotic? Why are people born into such chaotic circumstances? Because just like you're here in the natural world, in the spirit realm, the enemy can see the anointing that God has on everybody's life. And people with strong anointings and strong callings, they come after the hardest because they don't want God's will to be done. Because then you're going to carry out God's plan, whatever it looks like, whatever God's mission was for you. The enemy can see it in the spirit realm and say, we're going to introduce a bunch of chaos early and often. I don't want to fight him when he's at his strongest serving the Lord. I want to fight him when he doesn't know the Lord and get him off track so he never serves the Lord, because if he comes to know the Lord, he or she will be a powerful force for God's kingdom, and we can't have that. And I think about that. I think about those that are locked up, that many of them had very chaotic lives. Well, why? Why was there so much chaos introduced? Why then? Well, yes, they're responsible for their crimes, and they're not softening that. But the chaos was introduced to derail them keep them from doing what God's purpose was. And I would have never thought that before. I would have thought, hey, you messed up. You got to pay. You got to pay the man. You got to pay the piper. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't have given it a second thought.
Yeah, I think many of us see things that way. We look at the layer that's causing the problem and not understand that there's layers and layers beneath that led to that. And that's
And
where
I would never even
compassion.
look for the layers.
Yeah.
I would be like, not my problem. That's your problem. Your addictions led you here.
Mhm.
Your whatever, your X, Y, and Z led you to this. You need to fix you, and you need to look in the mirror and face and deal with all the consequences of your life choices. Yes, that is true. But how can we minister to them? How can we minister to the lost? The lost of that they're not. There's the hopeless, to try to deliver hope to the hopeless. And
Yeah.
that's the calling, is to try to be a light in a broken and fallen world. And
So true.
that's the new trajectory.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm very successful, and sometimes I feel miserable. And but I try to make an honest effort to share the good news whenever I can. Oh my goodness! And wait till I tell you what happened at the hospital. I'm in the ambulance. I'm pulling out, and I'm heading from Lakeside to Sharpton Memorial Hospital. One of my partners, her name was Danielle, jumped in the back. So it was me on the gurney, the paramedic, Danielle in the back, the EMT driving the rig. We're off to the races. We're off to the hospital. And she's like, hey, we love you. We're going to take care of you. Everything's going to be just fine. And I remember saying, just get me to the hospital. Just get me to the hospital. I'll be okay. And due to the blood loss, I lost vision. My vision just faded out. Like we're talking and it just went black. Everything went black, but I could still hear. I remember I had the oxygen mask on, but it was hard to breathe. So I took the oxygen mask off. I told the paramedic in the back, I said, it's getting harder for me to breathe. That he was on the radio relaying my vitals to the trauma surgeon and the anesthesiologist. My vitals were so bad, everybody thought that I wasn't going to make it to the hospital alive. And once my vision went out and it went pitch black, I said, oh, this was the third and final time I thought I was going to die. And I said, oh, this is where I die. I said, it's okay. I'm gonna die a free man, breathing free air. And above all else, I just spent 3 minutes with Jesus. I said, that's a good death. And I was at complete and total peace. And then I know what the crazy sounds in my head. I know what my partner sounds like. I know what the EMP sounds like. But this little soft voice, it was so quiet, I almost missed it. It was in my ear. And it said, just hold on. And it was Jesus. That warm bathwater feeling, the presence of the Lord washed over me again in the ambulance. And that was the moment that I knew I was going to be okay. No matter how long it took. Tomorrow is the 13th anniversary. I've had 43 surgeries. I've had 1,000 hours of physical therapy. I knew I was going to be all right. That was the moment I knew everything was going to be all right. And I was at complete and total peace. And the ambulance pulls into the parking lot at the emergency room. They come out with a trauma surgeon anesthesiologist. They cut me open. They give me a breathing tube. And for whatever reason, I can see again. And I don't know how that worked. I remember being on a gurney looking up, going into the hospital. And the last thing I see before I go into surgery was a nurse. And I don't know what her name was, but she had pink scrubs on with teddy bears and brown hair. That's all I remember. I don't remember what her face looked like. I don't know what her name tag said. But I said, my name's Perez. I've been shot with a rifle a couple of times. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. You have my consent. Do whatever you need to do to keep me alive. Those were my last words before going into surgery. And I go into surgery, and I'm in surgery for almost 12 hours. It gets to a point where I went through 100 bags of blood and blood product. Now, we interviewed the anesthesiologist twice. The first time we talked to him, he said it was 200 bags. The second time we talked to him, it was 100 bags. So it's between 1 and 200 bags, but I used the entire Sharp Memorial, whatever they had on reserve, we used all of it. And they were hooking me up to a machine that would go through 1 bag a minute, and they would fill me with a bag, and then I would leak everywhere, and they would just staple it shut.
And I'm guessing they've never seen anybody survive with that amount.
According to the anesthesia, yes, they could have stopped giving me blood at 10, 15 bags. Mm-hmm. And with a clear conscience that we can't stop the bleeding, we're wasting resources. A couple of things that were miracles that I didn't know about till a couple of years later. When we talked to the anesthesiologist, he said, Ali, when you got here, you didn't have any blood left in your body, but your heart was still beating, and we can't explain it. He was a non-believer, and I got to share everything. We're friends to this day. His name's Dr. Mark Cannon. He's a true believer in miracles now, and I don't know where he is on his walk, but before he discounted God 100%, and now he says, I need to rethink my position on God, because I know what a miracle looks like when I see one. And he wrote me this beautiful letter about, he didn't believe until that day. And so he didn't know the wound was through and through at the time. And he told me later on, he's like, I didn't know that your wound originally was through and through. He goes, had I known that, I might not have even started giving you blood. And he goes, but once we started, he said, your heart never stopped beating. So I said, as long as your heart's beating, I'm going to keep giving you blood. And so that was another miracle. I had so many internal injuries, I needed 9 different specialists, plus the trauma surgeon, plus the nursing crew, plus the anesthesiologist to deal with all my different body parts and organs that were injured. All of them were there. When in the history of medicine is everybody you need there at one time? Had a prepped and ready operating room. Right before I got there, a surgery was canceled. So they had a fully prepped and ready operating room. Again, another miracle upon miracle upon miracle. They get me in there. I'm in surgery for between the 11 and 12-hour mark. They come out and tell my wife they can't stop the bleeding and to make preparations that I'm not going to survive. And they took my wife, my son, and my wife's baby sister off separately because now the waiting room, we took over a whole floor. And there was hundreds of police officers from all over the county. And we're going through, and they come out and they told my wife, we can't stop the bleeding. And your husband's not going to survive. My son was there, and he said, no, Mom, watch this. Pops has got this. And I'm not bragging on me. I'm going to finish this with my pops had me so that I wouldn't break my son's heart. My father had me so I wouldn't break my son's heart. So my little sister-in-law went out to the waiting room and said, they can't stop the bleeding. And it doesn't look good. We all need to pray. And everybody stopped what they were doing and were praying for me, not only at the hospital, but at police and sheriff stations all over the county. I got letters from all over the world, prayer letters and blankets, and praying for you from countries from all over the world. It was beautiful. And I'm the direct recipient of the power of prayer what got me over the finish line. They were able to find the last spot of bleeding. It was under my diaphragm. They were able to stop it, and they came out and they said, okay, we got the bleeding stopped, but the journey just started. The anesthesiologist took my wife to the side and said, you need to understand about how much blood I gave your husband. His body could reject it all, and all his organs could fail. There's so many bad things that can happen. But we'll cross each obstacle at it as it comes one at a time. He's got so much going on with him right now that this is just the beginning of his recovery. And we still don't even know if he's going to survive. We just managed to stop the bleeding. But at least he has a chance to survive now. And so I'm sleeping through all this. My wife had the joy of experiencing all that while I'm over there sleeping, taking a nap. But 24 hours later, I hear my son. I'm supposed to be in a medically induced coma at this point because there's so many internal damage injuries. My body's under a lot of stress. So I said, we got to put him in a coma to reduce the stress so that he can start healing from the inside out. So they had all these I had 7 different wound vacuums on me to suck out all the bad stuff. And so I would start healing it from the inside out to help reduce infection. And it's like waking up from a dream, but your eyes don't open. And I woke up and it was pitch black and I could barely hear, but I heard off to my side, I heard my son saying, come on, Pops. Come on, Pops, you got this. You got this, Pops, come on. I was like, oh, that's my son. He's worried about me. I need to let him know that I'm all right and it's not the medication talking. When both my kids were born in Hawaii, so I threw a shotgun to them with my good arm. I heard everybody erupting and cheering in the waiting room. And then I would go back to sleep. I was in the ICU, and it was a little tiny room, and my wife said that I would let 3 people in at a time. She said there were so many people there that all day, all night, I'll just 3 at a time come in, 3 at a time. And everybody would come in and, show love and respect and well wishes to my family and to me. And I'd open my eyes from time to time, and I don't know how long that would be, but I was like, oh man, I haven't seen that dude in 18 years. I remember him, and I go back to sleep. I wake up, oh, that's my partner from so-and-so, and I go back to sleep. Oh, that was my neighbor from when I used to live over there. And then I opened my eyes one time, and I had this Mexican gangster standing next to my room, next to my bed. It was late at night. I remember it was dark. And I stopped and I paused, and I said, why do I have a gangster standing next to my bed? Brown flannel shirt, bald head, tattoos, inked out, sleeved out. And I looked and I paused and I'm like, why do I have a gangster stand? Where are my boys at? And then I looked next to him and there was a demon standing next to him. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's something more going on here. And he looked at me the way I'm looking dead at you. He looked at me and he said, this is what happens when you take their money. I knew they were going to catch up to me eventually. So I figured I'd have some fun along the way before they caught me. And I heard a bunch of laughing, and I looked over his shoulder, and behind him was a small circular belly-up table with another demon and 4 Mexican nationals all in Western wear. Cowboy hats, belt buckles, pearl snaps, boots, jeans, belts. 2 men, 2 women, smoking cigarettes, laughing like they were the best of friends. And my mind started racing. And I don't know why it went this way, but I said, okay, that's 5 dead bodies. I don't even know where they are. I'm basically paralyzed in the hospital. I can't work this case from the bed. I'm not even assigned to homicide, but I can get the case started till they get here. But it was funny. I started went into the work mode. I said, well, I got these demons standing next to them. I said, so I know that these people are dead. I just don't know where they are. And I get asked this about the demons all the time. So ones that I saw while I was in the ICU, I'm 6'2", so they were my height or a little bit taller. They were dark brown or bronze. They looked like gargoyles. So they had human features, human-like bodies, with big black claws, clawed feet, the gargoyle heads, jet black eyes, no pupils, white fangs, the bat rat-like ears. Some of them had horns, some of them didn't. Some of them had spikes on their skin, some of them didn't. And they were my first encounter with the demons was these 2 guys. Well, it was this guy and those 4 that were behind him. And I'll pause right there, and I asked my wife about this guy. She goes, 2 days after you got shot, this Mexican gangster got shot in the head. And they kept him alive long enough for his family and friends to come say goodbye to him. And then they pulled the plug because he was brain dead, and they harvested his organs. So I spoke to him twice. The second time I spoke to him, it was different. He was by himself, and the demon was holding his hand this time. Before, the demon was just standing next to him. The next time I saw him, turned out to, I didn't know how long had passed during the time, but after the fact, I learned it was 2 days. That it was, he was holding his hand, and he stopped at the foot of my bed. And I looked and I saw him, and the demon was holding his hand, and he was smiling all wicked and all happy and sinister and evil. And he said, I knew where I was going the whole time. I just wanted to be treated with respect along the way. And my heart broke for this guy. And I kept saying, I'm sorry, man. I said, I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry, man. And this huge door that was in my room, steel door, opened up. And I could see off in the distance a glow of orange flame. The same screams I heard in the apartment, I heard again. And the demon walked him through that door, and that door shut, and I never saw him again.
Why do you think you were shown that?
Oh, that was one of many. For the next 10 days, they were coming in and out of my room all day and all night, telling me the Bible's a lie, Jesus is a lie, nobody's saved, everybody's saved, everybody burns, you're going to burn. Several times my wife, and I'm supposed to be in a coma during all this. My wife would come into the ICU room and I would throw her out, and she mistook it. She thought I was angry with her. And I asked her, I said, how many times did I do that? She said 6 or 7 times. I said, what was happening? He said, there were demons in the room saying all these horrible things about what they were going to do to you. So I was trying to get you out of there. And my brother-in-law at the time, he worked as a police officer for the city of El Cajon. And he would come in and he'd read to me the Bible almost every day, 4 times a week. And he'd come and he'd read to me scripture, and the demons would come in and they would mock it. They would say it in other languages. They would fill it full of profanity. They would say it backwards. And so he would read to me scripture on this side of my bed, and 2 demons would be on that side of my bed. And the biggest example was when they'd come in. The worst is when they'd get behind my bed and just whisper in my ear for hours and hours and hours. Same thing over and over. The Bible's a lie. Jesus is a lie. You're not saved. Nobody's saved. Everybody burns. You're going to burn too. This doctor came in and said, if you don't go to sleep, you're going to die. If I give you any more medication, I'm going to kill you. Well, I didn't know at the time that once you're saved, the Holy Spirit signs his name, marks you with his seal, that you belong to him. And I was ripped from my waistline to my sternum, the width of my fist, because they had to rewire all my intestines and do my lung work on my lungs, and that had to work on all my insides. And I thought one of these demons was going to crawl inside me and possess me. I was too scared to go to sleep. And every time I saw one, I would start freaking out. I was too scared to go to sleep. And this would go on for days and days and days. And then this whole case was predicated off of a pedophilia case. And so one of my last encounters, and every time I saw one of these demons, I was like, there's something I'm supposed to do and I don't know what it is. There's something I'm supposed to say and I don't know what it is. God had been withholding that from me, not as punishment, but as a lesson. My brother-in-law was reading to me. He said, hey, congratulations on this church you just opened. It's in a pagan area. It's full of sexual immorality. Do not partake in the orgies and all the sexual immorality in the area. And above all else, do not expose the children to the sexual immorality in this area. And as he was reading to me, in my ICU room came this giant staircase. And down the staircase came, this one wasn't a demon. This one was a fallen angel because he was huge. It was very distinct. You could tell it was very distinct difference. He was every bit of 12 feet or taller. He was massive, massive in stature, like Zeus, like a giant, massive, muscular build, like Zeus, Hercules times 10. Had these giant wings, bat-like, demonic-looking wings. He had these huge horns coming out of his head. And same thing, and just massive build. But he was had in each arm, leading him down the stairs was these little girls. And they were in their Catholic school outfit with the plaid and the blue plaid, and they had the little ponytails with the high socks and the shiny, shiny leather shoes. And every time I saw one of these things, I was terrified. And I don't know what happened and why this was different, but I saw it, and first time I became furious. And he stopped and he spoke to me. He looked directly at me like we're talking, and he was very calm. And he said, why are you so angry? Your world's full of pornography, prostitution, human trafficking, sex slave, child abuse, child porn, child molest. So your world's full of this. He's like, they're going to learn it anyway. So they might as well learn it from me. And he started laughing. And he went down the stairs. This other door opened. He went through that door, shut the door. And I could still hear him laughing from the other side of that door. And I was unglued. I was furious. And then I was allowed to pray for the first time. And I said, God, my mind is getting weak. I'm afraid it's going to break. I can't take the demons anymore. Would you help me, please? And just like you and I are talking, he spoke to me. It wasn't Jesus' voice. This was God Almighty, God the Father's voice. And it sounds exactly how you think it's going to sound, like rolling thunder. And he spoke to me and he said, son, I want you to lay down on this green grass next to these still waters and find peace. Psalms 23. In my recovery room, there's a stream running through my recovery room with 2 stones. I get out of bed. I'm out of my body. I don't know I'm out of my body. For me, I just sit up. I step across these 2 stones. I plop down on some baby soft grass and I sleep for 24 hours. And when I wake up, no more demons, no more interaction, no more coming into my room all hours of the night, no more demonic activity at all. Just an overwhelming sense of peace. And God the Father spoke to me in the hospital. And it was not a punishment. It was a lesson. Zali, you're a man of faith. And your faith is your armor. But I'm showing you what true evil looks like in its truest form. And the only thing that defeats them is the word of God. There's no worldly weapon that can defeat the demonic and the spiritual realm or a fallen angel. It is the word of God only. And it's a calling to learn the word of God to use as a weapon against the spiritual warfare that's going on around. This was going on since the fall. We were all born into this. This was happening thousands of years before I got here. It'll happen after I'm gone, until Christ comes and takes his kingdom back. And why I was allowed to see that, I got to see the vastness of eternity, the finality of God's judgment, and our enemy in his truest form, so that I could come. Somebody like me, wasn't raised in the church, a sinner in every aspect of the word, that I could, everyday people. I like to consider myself an everyday people, so I could go to everyday people and say there's hope. And the spiritual part is for the spiritual warfare and all the battles that have happened since that time in the hospital. And, up to and including last night in my grandbaby's room, spiritual warfare. And so it doesn't stop. but just being aware of it and to be prepared for it. And that's my testimony. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share it with you.
I mean, what a testimony on all levels, the miracles that took place, the testimonies, the visions that you've been given, the encounters. I kind of want to say a couple things. You know, if somebody listening might go, oh, that sounds crazy. I for one, like I always was, let's bring out the light. I never gave much. I'd sit in church and hear about the devil, and that just didn't resonate with me. Like that wasn't my calling to bring that out. But I'm hearing so much more these days on spiritual warfare. And I do believe that there is so much beyond what we can see, and you experienced it. And somebody sitting there going like, that sounds crazy. I've had other guests. In fact, my next episode that will be released, they experienced the same thing with the waters and how in these healing waters. And there's so many stories of this, and people who have seen visions, both heavenly type of visions and demonic type of visions. And so I trust that it's out there. I don't know how you go on. Like I'd be a little scared, I think, but you had said something about the only way to overcome it is the word of God. And I know not everybody may agree with me, but I just want to say this because, it's a long episode. They may not even make it to the end. But it says in the Bible. You might want to
break this up into chunks.
Maybe. We'll see. Mm-hmm. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Mm-hmm. And God is with us. And so our words, not even take the words that are in the Bible too, but our words that we speak, like going back to we are in this world, but not of this world. Like we have to assume an authority and the right words that come out of our mouth that are backed by the word of God with us to
blessings
overcome
or
it.
Curses,
that's
right?
what I'm
we
feeling.
Speak blessings or we speak curses.
Yeah.
And there's so much power in the tongue. And I didn't realize the gravity and the effect of that for many, 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 many years.
Yeah. Well, what would you say, one last question for you, what does this tell you, and you kind of already touched on it, but what does this tell you about the supernatural world that exists here?
It's real, and the enemy the world here is a distraction. It's all glitter, it's all shining and shimmering objects, the next greatest movie, the next sport team, the next this, the next hit song, the next superstar, the next movie, the next book. The next job, the next promotion, the next car, the next house, the next outfit. You fill it with X, Y, and Z. And the next distraction to keep you from seeing what's going on behind the scenes. Because there is a physical world. We all live in it. You guys deal with it every day. But on the flip side, there's a spiritual world. And that's where the movement happens. That's where the plans are made for the enemy and for the kingdom, and they're executed in the spiritual world and then manifested in the physical world. Now is the time in the season, we're in the season to just try to be the light. And I come in humility and love to share the gospel. Even to somebody saying, I don't believe you're lying, whatever. I still love that person. And I hope that I can plant a seed that would bear fruit one day.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do. My mandate is to share and plant the seed and let God be God and let me be me. And that he'll do the works that are gonna, he gets all the glory, he gets all the credit, but he's asked me to share the gospel with those that he's put in my path. And I try to be a good steward of that. And again, sometimes I'm awesome at it and sometimes I fail horrifically. And I'll say this, you don't need to be perfect to come to Christ. I hear this a lot. Oh man, if you knew what I did, mm-hmm. You'd be, that dude loves you. Just come as you are. Give it a try. Spend time with the Lord, but be aware the world has you and the enemy owns you and will fight fearlessly to keep you. So put this to the test. This is a little test. Now, tell yourself, I'm going to go in my room for 5 minutes. I'm going to sit on my bed and I'm just going to thank God and spend time with God. Watch the hand grenade that goes off in your head. Got to pick up the kids, take out the trash, feed the dog, change the oil. This bill is due. I got a meeting at this, pick up the dry cleaning, you name it. There's 5,000 distractions that you will get bombarded with. Your phone will ring up, your social media will go, the television, the doorbell will ring, all when you're trying to spend time in prayer. But that's not by accident. That's to keep you from doing it. Because the same enemy that won't pray, doesn't want you to pray, will throw himself on his face and call Jesus Son of God Most High in his presence. But he doesn't want you to know the power that's associated and the freedom that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to also touch on the fact you mentioned your daughter wrote a book about this, and she did it from the perspective of multiple people that were involved in the incident that day. Do you want to let us know what that's called, where we could find it? And I'll make sure to put that in the description.
After I got hurt, my daughter graduated. I was in 2012. My daughter graduated from Dartmouth College in 2015. She spent the next 18 months or 2 years interviewing all my partners and the medical staff. So she wrote the story of what I've described to you from not only my perspective, but from everybody from the rescue team, from all my partners that were there, from the doctors in the hospital that worked on me. And so you're seeing a 360 view of everything that happened, all the miracles you heard about inside the apartment with me, but there was many going on outside that happened as well. And the title of the book is called Bless Him, because that's what Christ commanded me to do with the guy that was shooting at me, was to bless him. So the name of the book is called Bless Him. My daughter's name is Raylan Perez, Perez, and it's on the Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and I'm sure some other ones. Yeah. But she wrote a book. It's been out for about a year now, and it's from multiple different perspectives. And if that's something you guys would be interested in, it would be a blessing to my family.
Oh, I love it. I'll make sure to put a link below. I'll find it and put links so people can read the story in different perspectives that came out of that as well. So thank you so much for being willing to share your amazing story. And as I was listening to you share, I can't help but think, you were in law enforcement. You saw a lot of evil, I'm sure, made you thicker skinned, I'm sure as well. But it's like God uses that, and He's using it now for you through your story and your testimony to touch the lives of people that knew you before and knew you now, and to back it up with the medical miracles that took place. It's not just you saying this. There's also evidence medically that can't really be explained. And so you're a walking testimony on many levels, I'm sure, to so many.
The lead trauma surgeon for 30 years at Sharps. When they took my ileostomy bag off because my intestines finally got rewired, and he said, "Ali, I've been a trauma surgeon for 35 years. I've been the lead trauma surgeon here for 30. And nobody with your type of injury survives ever. And I have no explanation as to why you're alive other than God." And I got to share the gospel with him. Dr. Jeffrey Smith and Dr. Sanzone, who rebuilt my arm, who put the titanium rod where my humerus used to be. Dr. Smith said, "Ali, I just finished writing a book about soldiers returning from Afghanistan and Iraq with your type of injuries, how they never survive. And now I've got to rewrite my book." And I said, "Please include me. Please put an asterisk next to my name in big bold letters. Say, thank you, Jesus. He's the only reason why I'm still alive." And I got to share the gospel with the medical staff there. And it's not about me. It was done for me so that I can come and share and try to give hope, because I have beat my head against the steering wheel in frustration. I've lived a life outside of the Lord, outside of the gospel, and I've put my family through all kinds of grief and suffering because of my hard-headed ways, my hot temper. And it's but by the grace of God I'm alive. But by the grace of God, my family's intact. And I want to offer hope. I mean, I'm supposed to be dead as a doornail 13 years ago tomorrow, but I'm here by his mercy and grace. And it's not a country club for me. It's available to anybody that wants it. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is spend time with the Lord and receive the best part, it's free. It really is a free gift. And you can't earn it. You can't buy it. You can't pay for it. You can't work your way in. It's a free gift, and you just choose to believe. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, and I say it with the utmost sincerity. If you have people that watch this later on down the line and they reach out to you, I will speak to anybody, anywhere, anytime, in any part of the world. I've been as far as Canada, and I've had the blessings to be down in Mexico, as far as Canada, and all across the country, sharing this amazing testimony. And I'm happy to share with anybody, with your family, your neighbor, the milkman, the postman, the trash man. I don't care. If you've got somebody that hears it and says, I got questions, somebody reaches out to you, give them my cell phone. I've had the same cell phone number for 20 years. I'm not changing the number for this reason specifically. Text me, email me. We'll set it up. I'll just come out and talk to you one-on-one. I don't care, one or a million. The amount of people is not my calling. Is to answer the call, whether it's one or whether it's a million. And it's not for me. It's because how can I not show love to the one who showed love to me when I was unlovable? And I'm just grateful. I really am. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, so generous of you. Medically, you're doing good. And then did you ever go back to work? I should have asked that too.
Oh, so a couple of things. Oh man, I got to get this before my phone dies. Okay, so I got hurt September 25th, 2012. Okay, if my phone dies, I'm gonna plug it back in. I'm gonna call you back. All right. So I got hurt September 25th, 2012. I spent the next 3 or 4 years in and out of the hospital. 2 years later, October 4th, I retired. October 4th, I officially retired 2014. And we went to court later on. I testified we never went to trial. We went to a preliminary hearing though. And at the prelim, I testified how the good Lord spared me. And bad guy goes back to county jail, makes a collect call to his mom. And they televise the prelim. It's all online. And the mom says to him on the recorded line, hey, I just watched your prelim on TV. That detective that you shot said he saw Jesus. Is that true? On a recorded line 2 years later, he could have said anything. He said, yeah, Mom, I saw him. He was there. The prosecutor called me after the prelim, said, get down to my office. You're not going to believe this. You need to hear this. And so he played the recorded line because they were waiting for him to admit that the girlfriend tipped him off that we were coming to charge her as an accessory. Mm-hmm. The day before the trial started, he pled guilty to the charging document, received 2 life sentences plus 85 years plus 5. So it's double life plus 90 total. He'll never touch another child ever again. We all went home to our families, and the baby girls are safe. They got adopted into a house outside of the chaos. Our mom lost custody of the kids. She went back to using meth and ended up losing custody of the kids. And that guy admitted to seeing Jesus. And it was a blessing all the way around.
Yeah. So we took a quick little pause. We had a connection issue. But before we close this episode, I forgot that I had asked you previously about the guy and have you ever connected or heard anything about what he said he experienced there?
So what I got was 2 years after the fact, we went to preliminary exam. And just like I'm telling you guys now, that I testified in open court how the good Lord spared me. And it was a prelim, so there was no jury, but it was the judge, the defense attorney, the defendant, and the prosecution, and we lay out all the evidence. Judge makes a ruling on, is the evidence sufficient to stand trial? And it was a packed courthouse with reporters and everything because it was a high-profile incident. I testified that I was spared by the good Lord, and just like you guys were hearing about. And after the prelim, bad guy goes back to county jail, and then I speak to several of the reporters, and I don't remember all the stations. And I said, I'll speak to everybody, but I want to challenge you guys not to edit out Jesus. And I want to say I spoke to like 5 or 6 different channels, and only one of them kept Jesus in there. Everybody else edited it out. So, and that was in 2012. So you can imagine what that would look like today. Mm-hmm. So we go back. The prelim is over. He gets bound over on all the counts. So we're getting set date for trial. The prosecutor calls me. I forget how long later. He calls me, says, Ollie, you need to come down to my office. There's something I need you to hear. So I go down to the prosecutor's office, and he plays an audio recording of a collect call the defendant made to his mom. His mom was living, I want to say, in the Murrieta, Temecula, or even further north, somewhere So the detective that you shot claims that he saw Jesus at your prelim. Is that true? He goes, "Gee, I just watched your prelim on TV, and that detective that you shot says he saw Jesus. Is that true?" Now, guys, keep in mind, this is 2 years after the fact. He could have said anything. And he goes, "Yeah, Mom, I saw him. He was there." That was on a recorded line between he and his mom. And that would just blew me away that 2 years later, he could have made up anything. He could have, whatever he said, but he admitted 2 years after the fact that he saw him. He didn't elaborate on what he saw, but at least he admitted to seeing Christ there. And that was the guy that we were in the middle of shooting each other. Mm-hmm. He ultimately pled guilty, got the double life plus 90, and he's in Central California. Now, I have not spoken to him or reached out to him yet, but that is on the horizon because I am super curious about his interaction with Jesus compared to what I saw. And I remember speaking at his sentencing, and I told him, and I said it with a sincere heart, I said, "I'm not angry at you. I forgive you, and I hope that you take whatever time you have left and pick up a Bible and get to know who the Lord is. So on that day you stand before him, you'll be welcome into the kingdom and not rejected." And that's at his sentencing hearing, also online already. So I actually got to forgive him with a sincere heart and no lip service. And I know he's in Central California, and I'm very, very curious to see what his interaction was with Jesus. I don't know what it is now, but that's a mission of mine for a future endeavor, to go out and see if he'll take my visit and let me just interview him.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious with you, so you'll have to, if that does happen, I would love to hear how that turns out. Maybe you can come back and share if it's story worthy.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I, of course he saw something. I mean, because you can't just go from that mindset to the mindset that he went to. But then you also mentioned that it seemed like he switched back at some point. So it would be interesting to hear his perspective and even where he's at now. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know, I mean, you didn't go through all of that for not to be this huge testimony to so many people. And I just appreciate you for taking the time today to be on my platform and share this amazing story with my audience. And I hope that it does bring hope to people. I hope that it does awaken eyes and hearts to, gosh, maybe there is more going on around me than I'm aware of.
Thank you very, very much. It's an honor and privilege to testify to the mercy, love, and grace of Jesus. And if he'll do it for me, he'll do it for anybody. And I just want to reiterate that one last time that, there's hope, and that hope is in Jesus Christ, because there was parts of my life that are dumpster fires and train wrecks. And I was delivered from all of that. Mm-hmm. And God gets all the glory, and Jesus gets all the glory. And I deliver hope, a message of hope. If you guys hear anything out of this, just know that I spoke with a sincere heart, that I came in love and never in condemnation. And that there's hope, and that hope is not me. That hope is in Jesus. Thank you so very, very much. I'm truly grateful.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow. And I also want to tell you, Ollie, thank you. Thank you so much, not just for what you're doing now, but for your years of service in law enforcement. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. Even the Santana shooting, you've witnessed and seen firsthand a lot of tragedy, a lot of chaos, and you've put your own life on the line to protect others. And I know that law enforcement has gotten a bad rap these days from some of the population, but in every profession, there's some good guys, there's some not some good guys, but it takes a special heart to sacrifice your life. And so I want to thank you for being one of those, and in our community here, like you've put your life on the line several times to help protect people. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome. And it was a privilege, and I would do it again. And there's no higher calling than to help babies. And in both of those incidents, it was helping kids. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of a better way for service and sacrifice and to help our most precious resource, which are our babies, and even up to our seniors that are 17 and 18-year-old. They're still our babies, and all the way down to the smallest. And it was a privilege, and I was happy to do it, and I do it so that if they called me today, I'd jump in the truck and head right on down.
And I don't doubt that you would. Anyway, thanks again for being here. If stories like this bring you hope and encourage your faith, I would love your support by subscribing or following this podcast, and share it with someone who you think might be inspired by it too.